Okay, so now we're at the end of turn 2. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take this off. Sorry, not the end of turn 2. The start of turn 2. So let's roll for initiative. Another tie. Okay, here we get the Americans with an advantage. 8-5. 8-6. Subtract that. Okay, so the Americans get to go once. Okay, that's not any big deal. Now, with the Americans, they are going to... I don't think they have line of sight on anyone. Again, I'm not playing that carefully, as you can see. I feel like that's going through the hex just a teeny bit, so I'm going to say they don't have line of sight. And so, because they don't have line of sight on anyone, they're going to pass. Now, let's see what the Germans are going to do. The Germans... This group will move up. The Americans, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Again, line of sight for limiting terrain like woods and towns is 3 hexes. 1, 2, 3. So they're just out of spotting range at that distance. Neither side can really see the other. So, let me see. So I think in this game, let me just double check bombardment. I don't think the Germans can just start willy-nilly bombarding the town. I think you have to have a target, but on some levels it would make sense if they could just bombard terrain. So let me double check that. Okay, yeah. So the rules state you have to have spotted a target in the hex to start dropping bombardments, especially for off-board artillery. Okay, so let me see. The Germans just moved up. Okay, the Americans have gone once. The Germans have gone once. The Americans are going to go again, and they're going to pass because, again, they don't need to do anything. They just need to hold out. Okay, so we've got the Americans go twice, pass both times. The Germans have moved once. So let me see. The Germans now, they'll move these guys. Why not? Get a little bit closer. The Americans are going to continue to pass because they can't see anyone. So now it's the Germans' turn. Now the Germans have to decide what they want to do. They can get up close. Like these tanks are pretty good at infantry fire. A 10. But they can't fire in a group because remember, each tank is its own leader. So that means the Germans are going to have to act independently. So I could move a German tank up, and let's see what happens. So we would be doing a direct fire at a 10, which would go on the 7 column. The town would give it a -2 shift, so we'd be down to the 2. So it's really not, it's going to do morale checks if we're going to get right up and personal there. Which, that could be something, but it's not going to be enough to start devastating the Americans. So let me think about that for a second. Okay, my first mistakes were made. There is definitely opportunity fire in this. I don't know why I was thinking there wasn't. What I actually was thinking was that I could have sworn there was. And on a quick glance, I didn't see it, and I was like, I'm just going to move on. But no, there's definitely opportunity fire. Units can usually do 2 opportunity fires per sort of turn if they haven't done anything else. It's not like you can have a unit that's already moved take opportunity fire. Okay, what I was actually looking up when I just realized about the opportunity fire was entrenchments, and you can have entrenchments in town. They give you bonuses to direct fire, bombardment fire, but it's something that's on the board at the beginning of the turn. It's not something you can build. So, okay, so basically the only protection I'm going to have for these American units is the terrain bonus for the towns. So, with that, I think again I might still... Oh, it was the Germans going. Maybe this guy... Again, as soon as he moves there, he's going to be spotted. If he's spotted, then this group could do opportunity fire with bombardments. Now, because the bombarding units are off board, I think they can just be combined completely. Like, I think the Americans could drop a full load. Let me rephrase that. The Americans could fire a full sortie of all of their artillery on one unit. Actually, that's not true. It's not all of them, but you can do 3 off board in one shot. So they could get quite a shot onto one hex. I don't know if it would actually do anything against a armored vehicle, but they could drop quite a bit of artillery on a hex. So let me think about that for a sec. I think what I might do is I'm going to have this tank just move forward. So again, move or fire, so it can't do both. Now, the Americans, it's going to be spotted because they're next to each other, right? So we'll just sort of put that. The Germans have now moved 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. The Americans have passed, I think, enough times. Let's roll the dice. I may be wrong, but let me roll the dice anyway. Ooh, 14. Okay, so not 16 or above. Again, that's what you need to end the turn. So, let's keep going. Let me see what would happen with that with bombardments. So a town's going to give a -2 shift. So the Americans, yeah, let's drop 3 18s onto this spot right there. So 18 times 3 is going to be 54. So we would look on the 54, which is going to be, I guess, the 42, because it's not 55. So we're going to get -2 for being on the town. So it goes 42 down to 21. But I think we get a +2 because it's adjacent, so maybe that helps it dial in. Okay, so yeah, there is some risk to a danger close shot. Not that I've played Panzer Grenadier a million times, but I've actually never tried to bombard a unit adjacent to friendly units. But let's just do it and see what happens, and we'll go through what the procedure is. I don't think they should get that second +2 because they're not adjacent to the unit that's actually firing, right? They're adjacent to the unit that's spotting, but that's different. Any leader, I think, in good standing can spot whether or not they've moved. You don't activate for spotting. It's just something you can do and still take your turn. So we'll have him spot. We're going to do 42 column shifting down 2 to the 21, and then we'll figure out how to do adjacent fire in a second. So let's do that. We rolled an 8 on the 21. The way the TRTs work is basically the 2d6, mean like this. The 7 area is going to be the least effective, and the fringes, the 2 and the 12, the harder to get ones, are going to do a lot more damage. So an 8 is sort of right up the middle. On the 21 is a morale check. And the result, all units without armor values in a target hex check morale. So this is part of why tanks are pretty good. It's got an armor value of 4, so it's going to ignore that morale check. So now what we have to do is we have to figure out, is the adjacent hex hit? And what you're going to do is you're going to roll 2d6, and on a result of 2 to 5, the adjacent hex is hit. And you can sort of check for every hex. But with certain nationalities, Americans being one of them, I think the Germans are another. Let me double check. Certain nationalities basically get a +1 to the roll because their bombardments are a little more accurate. Yeah, Germans, British, Americans, they get a +1. All right, so we're going to roll 2d6, and we're looking to get a high result. 2d6 +1, I should say. Okay, so adjacent hex is fine. There's nothing there. So we've just blown our 18 artilleries to no effect with the tank. So now we're going to go back to the Germans, but first we need to roll the 3d6. Okay, so yeah, turn keeps going. Can the American troops attack the tank? Now, there are assaults in this game, and so I would just have to double check, could they assault a tank? Is that something they could do? Obviously, there's like tank platoons, so I don't think I think each one is like 3, supposed to represent like 3 tanks or something. Maybe it's just 1 tank per 1 counter. But Let me just double check the melee rules. Not melee, I mean, let me check the assault rules. Okay, so this was probably a pretty stupid thing for me to have done with the Germans, because assaulting is one of the few ways that non-anti-tank sort of infantry units can really hurt an armored unit. But you know what? Let's just do it. Because this is an armored vehicle, and this would work if the units were in entrenched positions or a dug-in position, they would get a first fire against the units coming into assault. So an assault can only begin, I think, when you are next to them. Like, you know how you can only move or fire. An assault is considered a fire, so you couldn't have moved up and then assaulted into the hex. Okay, so let's take a look and see, this lieutenant, if it had a combat value, could have added its combat value to one unit, which would have made one of the units underneath it a 7 instead of a 6. It also would have given him a 1-column shoo. I forgot there was a mix there. Would give him a 1-column shift. So now, I think there's separate leaders in the hex, but they're in the same hex, so I think you can still activate for an assault. For some reason, I thought that was just infantry, but that's actually going to help. So here's what you do. You total up your firepower. Now, that's interesting, though. Do I get the 2, or can I use the 7? Let me double check. Well, I guess, first we would get first fire. So the tank, the first fire could be a tank shot against that. So let me do that first. Actually, another mistake we made. Yeah, because they're both in towns, that first fire is not going to happen for a vehicle. AFV needs to have clear terrain for that first fire. Which, I guess makes sense. Like here, you can use cover to get closer. You're not just rolling out in the open. Okay, so yeah, we're going to use the anti-tank number. So we're going to get 2 plus 6 is 8. The reason why we're going to do that is because it's going to give us a bonus sort of for combined arms. If I can get the assault. Here we go. It's going to give us a bonus for combined arms. You only get that bonus if your vehicle has what's called armor efficiency. And armor efficiency is sort of a trait that certain countries have depending on who they are and when it takes place. The Germans, I think, always have armor efficiency. The Americans definitely have armor efficiency in scenarios after 1944. So this is 1944, so they're going to have it as well. So we get a 2 and a 6, so we've got an 8, which puts us in the 5 column. It's going to go up to the 9 because it's an AFV without support. It's also going to get a +1 because the Americans have an undemoralized closed top efficient AFV and at least 1 infantry. So it's going to be from the 5 plus 1 for an AFV by itself takes us to the 9 plus 1 for sort of the combined arms effect is going to take us to the 13 column. So now we roll 2d6. A 9. Let's see. On the 13, that might actually do something. That's a morale 2. So here's what I'm having trouble finding at the moment. We've got a morale check with a 2 added to it. Because if you get above the morale number, they break. But I'm trying to figure out what the morale number is of an armored leader. Okay, so this is one of those dumb things where I have not played in a while, so you lose track of where everything is. I spent way too much time trying to figure out, what's the morale of a German tank for this morale check from the assault, and I think I'm just supposed to go with the morale levels prescribed in the special scenario rules. So for St. Vith, the morale for the Germans are 7 at full strength, 6th when reduced. For the Americans, it's 8 either way. They don't suffer a penalty when they are reduced. So I'm going to go with a 7 for the morale check on the AFV right here. So it was a morale 2 roll. So I'm going to take the 2d6, add 2 to it, and we're trying to get, in order not to break, below a 7. They did well. Okay, so with a 4, the tank holds still. So with an assault, the damage is simultaneous. So now we have to do the tank's damage on the Americans and see how that works. It looks like it'd be, does it do it against the tank or does it do it against the infantry? I'll have it take a shot against the tank. I feel like, I don't know if that's actually how it's supposed to work. Let me take a quick look. Okay, I think it's just a direct anti-tank shot, which I think, let me figure out how you do that, but I don't think there's any dice roll modifiers for it being an assault. I think it's just this tank sort of shooting at that tank. So let's see how it works. I think what it's going to be is it's going to be, you know, you roll the dice, you add, and then you subtract the tank's armor, which is an armor of 1, so that's not going to do much, but let me double check. Okay, we get to the anti-tank fire table. Let's see, you roll 2 dice, add the attacker's anti-tank fire value, subtract the target's armor value, add any modifiers. I think there's no modifiers because it's an assault. So basically on a 9 or less, nothing happens. 10 through 12, target loses a step. If it survives, you make an M2 morale check. 13 or more, it's eliminated. So we're going to roll 2d6. We're going to add 6 to that number, and then we're going to subtract 1. Okay, so 7 plus 6 is a 13, which would bring it into the eliminated, but the armor makes it a 12, which means it's going to lose a step. Now, losing a step, now it makes a morale 2 check. The American morale is an 8. Okay, so 4 plus 2 is 6, so that's fine. Okay, so that's the assault. Nothing really happened to the tank. That tank took a 1-step reduction. So let's reform the pile. Let me see what happens, though. You know, they sort of bounced off each other. Let me see what happens with that. Now, I think what happens is I think we just keep going. I think the assault keeps going until one unit's eliminated, one side's eliminated or retreats. So I guess we'll do another round. That, I don't know if that's 100% correct, but I think that's true. So maybe I should undo this stack. Okay, so we got 2 plus 6 is 8. We're going to get the bonus for the AFV. The 8's going to put it on the 5 column. You get a +1 to the 9 column because the German tank's all on its own. Then we are going to get I think another +1 because we have an undemoralized AFV and an infantry tag teaming here. So a 2-column shift takes us to the 13 column again. Here's the roll. A 4 on the 13 column is a 1-step loss. Ooh, okay, so this guy's going to take some damage. Not bad. Okay, so now that tank gets an M2 morale check. Ooh, okay, so it's going to fail morale. That tank is now going to become disrupted, and let me see what that does. Okay, so this has been flipped and disrupted, but that, before we figure that out, we got to do one more shot at full strength because damage is simultaneous. So again, it's a 6 plus the 2d6 going against the tank. 8 is a 14. That's going to eliminate this unit. Okay. So American unit is destroyed. That goes to that. Now, let me see what happens. Okay, so that counts as 2 steps eliminated for the Americans. At 3 steps, they lose an initiative. So I'm going to sort of put this here for the 2 steps. The Germans haven't lost any steps yet. Let me see if anything happens when you lose a leader in your hex. That sometimes losing certain types of things can trigger a morale for the rest of the units in the hex. Now, one thing I might have missed, because I don't remember what I rolled for my disrupted. If you miss your morale by 1 or 2, it's disrupted. If you miss it by 3 or more, you go straight to demoralized. So it's possible that could have been demoralized because I don't remember what the roll was. But we'll just stick with it. Okay. So let's see. Getting a little dicey, but I think we're going to continue the assault. We're going to lose that 1 bonus for the combined arms, but I think we're going to keep the 1 bonus for the fact that that tank is on its own. So we have a 6, which is going to put us on the 5 table. We're going to go up to the 9 with that 1 bonus, and let's see how we do. An 8 on the 9 is going to do nothing. All right. The tank is doing a 5 against a 6. Well, it's a 5. So it starts on the 5 column. Oh, you know what? I keep forgetting that 8. I keep forgetting there's a +1 for the lieutenant. So that 13. So that 5 should have been a 9. 13. Okay, so that's an 8 becomes a morale 1. So this guy's going to get a morale 1 check. So let's try that. 7 plus 1 equals an 8. So it's going to blow its thing, and it's going to become demoralized. If I can find that. Here we go. So this unit's now demoralized. Okay, before we do that, we're going to continue. It gets 1 more shot on the 5 column. It gets might be a -1. Might be a -2 because it's trying to assault infantry in a town. The AFV doesn't get that bonus, but infantry might. So it might go from a 5 down to a 1. Let's see how that goes. A 7 is going to be nothing. That's interesting. I mean, that makes sense though, right? All right, so we've got a demoralized tank against this assaulting infantry. Now, a demoralized unit defends at like a quarter value, but let me see if it needs to actually pass a demoralized check during an assault, or if it needs to just, or if it can just fight like normal and then later on it has to see if it flees. Actually, I might have had that wrong. I don't know if the assaulting units get that -2 because they're not the defender. They're the attacker. So I rolled a 7, so it's not going to matter even on the 5 column, but I think that -2 should not have been there. Now, there may have been a +1 for the Americans because they have a higher morale. There's a +1 for all units of attacking side when they have a higher morale than all defending units. Germans a 7, the Americans are an 8, so I might have missed that. I don't know if this is my failure or the rules. They keep talking about activation, so I'm wondering if I should not, because let me put it this way. One of the rules specifically says the end of the fight. Assaults end immediately when one side is eliminated or all of one side's units leave the hex. So in my mind, that meant you kept going until the assault was resolved. But then they talk a lot about activations. And I don't quite follow if, assaults, I mean, because that means like assaults could take, multiple turns, which seems weird. Take multiple activations, I guess, within a turn, but in my mind, it's not 100% clear. So let me peruse this really quickly. Okay, so I think I was doing that incorrectly. We should have just been sort of doing 1, and then with the next activations, we continue the assault. But you know what? Whatever. That's fine. We'll just leave it as is. We'll stop for now. All these units are technically in the same assault hex. They're all there. Oops. Again, my tweezer work is very poor. The tank is demoralized. Okay, so the whole hex is spotted because everybody was firing, so Germans can start shooting at the Americans. I think you can do stuff like that. Anyway, man, I've totally lost track of where I was. I think that was the Americans' turn. I think we were rolling for Fog of War, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so we keep going. Now we get the Germans. Now the German tanks, you can enter into that assault, I think. I think you can add more units to the mix. It could help, because there's not a lot of Americans left. So maybe there's something to bringing in some tank support. But I don't want to have the Germans get chewed up. And now this is the stupid thing. Like I know these three moved. That tank already moved into there. So it can't activate. So these tanks can be the ones that activate. Let me double check. So one thing I could do is I could bombard that hex with artillery. I mean, it could hit my tank, except tanks from bombardment don't really worry about it. So maybe that's worth it. Maybe that's what I'll do with this activation. I'll drop the 2 German, drop a 32 on there. Okay, so the 32 puts us on the 30. We're going to go down 2 hexes because it's a town, so we're now down to the 16. It's a -1 for friendly fire. I wonder if that would apply because we know that there's German units there. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do it because it's a known friendly fire situation. So that puts us on the 12. So what you do is you now roll 2 separate bombardment rolls. Let's do the first one for the German tank. A 6. That's not going to do anything. Let's do now for the Americans. A 6 is also not going to do anything. Okay, so the bombardment didn't have any effect on those units. All right, so now it's the Americans' turn. Well, they have a 24 they could drop, but again, it's very tough for bombardment. So basically what happens for bombardment to hurt a tank, you have to get some kind of step loss, but then that step loss just becomes a morale check. So on a 24, that would put us on a 21 -2 to 12 because it's a town -1 for friendly fire. And that would put us on the 8 column. There's no actual damage on the 8 column, so it wouldn't actually hurt the tank. So what I might do is as the Americans, I might pass. Do I want to, I mean, I guess I could bring more units. Well, I could bring a tank up. I don't think these infantry, because I think it costs 2 movement points for infantry in towns. Oh no, it only costs 1. Let's see, there's one unit. You can only have 3 combat units. There's 1 unit in there already. Could bring 2 more infantry. Keep my tank back. I'd have both leaders in the same hex though. That seems, I don't know if that's useful. That could knock out that tank. Maybe what I'll do is I'll bring up infantry and the vehicle so I get that bonus. Again, it's been a long time since I played this and I'm going in kind of cold, so this could not be the best tactics. This could all be entirely wrong. I think this is kind of the basics though. Okay, so these units are now joining. Oh nope, they can't move in assault. They can move into the hex. They can move adjacent to the hex. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll move all of them adjacent to see what's going on in the middle of town. That's their move. Okay. So let's roll. This is for the fog of war. Nope. Okay, we keep going. The Germans. This tank's going to move up. I'm going to move this up. Demoralized. Okay, roll for the German. Nope. Okay, the Americans are going to pass. Nope. The Germans. This German's going to move here. Now, I don't know if there's much point to this. The Americans are going to pass. And I think the Germans are done. Okay,